Today we're going to be covering the general settings under Events Settings. Starting off, we have the number of events to show per page, which allows you to control the number of events that are displayed in list views, like the default list view or map view in Events Calendar Pro, before the pagination appears. You can activate the block editor for events, which allows you to choose between using the new Gutenberg block editor, or if this option is disabled, you can use the classic editor for events. You can also choose to enable comments on the events pages and custom fields for single events as well, which will allow you to use the classic editor to create custom fields on your events. These will not display automatically on the front end of the event. You can choose to include your events in the main blog loop along with your other site's posts. You can also change the event's Url Slug, which will be the slug for the main events page. This is set to events by default, and you can choose to change the event slug for the single event page. It's important to note that these two slugs should not be the same, or you can run into conflicts. You can also enter the end of day cutoff. By default, events that go past 12 a.m. will show up on both days of your month view. However, you may have an event that runs until, say, 2 a.m., and you only want that event to display on the day that it started. So you can set your end of day cutoff to 2 a.m. This will prevent those events that go a little bit later than 12 a.m. from overlapping onto the next day on the calendar. Next, you can set the default currency symbol, and if that currency symbol should follow the cost value. On each single event page, you can add an event cost. You can change the currency symbol and whether it shows before or after the cost on the single event page, but here in the settings, you can choose the defaults. The duplicate venues and organizer setting is great when you've updated from a pre-3.0 version, in which case you can wind up with duplicate venues and organizers. Otherwise, you shouldn't need to use this setting. Next, you can move events to the trash automatically after a certain period of time. You can also choose to permanently delete those events after a certain period of time. For sites with lots of events, this can help keep your site from getting cluttered. In the map settings, you can choose whether you would like to enable maps on the single event page. If you have a venue that has map data enabled, you can choose to show this map on the front end of the single event. Here you can set the default zoom level, so if you'd rather that your events were zoomed in farther, you can set that here. In miscellaneous settings, this will help you get back to some of the pages that are displayed when you first get started with the plugin, and you can also enable debug mode. We recommend keeping this disabled unless you're running into any issues with the plugin. In time zone settings, you can choose to use manual time zones for each event or use the site-wide time zone. The site-wide time zone is the time zone that you've set in your general site settings. You can also choose to use a manual time zone for each event, which you can set on the single event page. If you choose to do so, the time zone will be displayed on the front end. If you choose to enable the show time zone option. That's all. Thanks for watching.